Stop looking behind you and only look at what's in front of you. Everybody's going to be all up in your face telling you how you should look, but in reality, what's in front of you? We'll talk about it right after this. Stick around. Man. Good morning. Hope all is well. How are you? No, I'm doing pretty good. It's Friday, June 27th. Even though there's still 3 more days of the month, this is probably it for the quarter end thing. We talked about that on Wednesday the 25th, and so it's Friday the 27th, and a lot of push. You're going to see a lot of weird stuff on the low boards today, and we're going to look at that. So if you're watching from the beginning, like if you saw my thing before the heavy metal, what's in front of you, right? That's kind of where I'm at, because I was sitting there. Owida sends me this thing with a market report based off a truck stop, and it's like this indicator this and this indicator that, and then we go over the DAT stuff, and then we obviously go over 1, 2, 3 low board stuff. And the reality is this: it's all perspective, and a lot of people will blame the rates for them going out of business, but you got to remember that a lot of people went out of business when the rates were super good. And so it's not necessarily the rates. It could be anything. It could be a truck breakdown. We're living in a world where it's now cheaper in some ways, and depending on your perspective, to replace your used truck with a used truck versus fixing the used truck. And that's a disposable society. I remember the first time I had a lawnmower issue. Like, it's some, and I went into this lawnmower shop, and they're like, yeah, man, I'm going to charge you this much and this much and this much, and that's not worth it on $100 mower. And I'm sitting there thinking, so it's cheaper to replace the mower than it is to fix it. And that's why that's one of the aspects of inflation being through the roof and everything. We live in a disposable society. You know, in the semi trucks these days, it's harder and harder to work on them yourself. And you either can spend $30,000 for a transmission, or you can spend 35 and get another truck. You know, so and what that does, that messes with the mentality. You might have a $10,000 problem, but then you're going to go out and buy a brand new truck. That's 180. You're going to throw $180,000 on a $10,000 problem because the mentality of what we've been engineered to deal with. But anyways, what's in front of you is basically you can sit there and look at this hot market and look at that hot market and look at this and look at that and and chase the money and chase everything, and in reality, what's in front of you. And you're going to find that 9 times out of 10, what's keeping you from making money is yourself. I've seen it, and I've lived it. So we'll get into that. The other thing that's going on is we got some safety weeks coming up. We got the 4th of July coming up next week. It's on a Friday. And so there's going to be a lot of extra transit times, and I think there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown on that week. So be prepared. So if you want to be home, make sure you're home by Thursday morning. If you want to run, make sure it's a long run that picks, and you're going to get your restart in unless you're going across the whole country. These are all aspects that you have to think about with the 4th of July. And then after that, we don't have a holiday for a minute, which would be nice. July historically has been okay for me. Sometimes it slows down. August seems to be a rougher month. And just take note that they start sending Christmas freight starting in late July, early August. And then they start preparing for NFL season, the stuff that's associated with that. So, and CDN says July 1st is Canada Day, 2 national holidays in the same week. Well, there you go. So I imagine it's going to that's going to make an effect as well. Let's go to CDN's comment. I'll get to the other comments as well. Good morning, Steve. Chris Jolly's guest was talking how most carriers don't know the true cost to operate. Every repair changes your cost, but I suspect most owner operators don't recalculate their costs. That is true. I agree with that. I agree with old Chris Jolly. Here's the thing. A truck repair. So let's say your truck payment's $2,000 a month. And then you have a $3,000 repair, right? That adds to that. So now so let's say you have no truck payment. Like me, I had no truck payment for over a year. Or 2 years, actually. I was talking with Shannon Thomas about numbers. And I was giving her an old profit and loss report from October of 21. And in that particular month, I had $12,000 in maintenance and repair, and also $5,000 in tires. I had bought tires that year, and a lot of people, like, I separate tires from the maintenance repair just so I can kind of keep an eye on what I'm spending on tires, but it's all part of the same thing. So that came out to like $17,000. So if we take that 17 and divide it by 12, that's now my truck payment's $1,460. Is the truck ever paid off? No. For those of you that think that that's going to be the golden goose, it's not. Now, if you have a paid off truck that's under warranty, you can make some cash with that. And there's a reason why full maintenance leases exist, is because if you're going to have a payment, have it to where you don't have to worry about the truck repair. But we're all obsessed in owning this piece of equipment that's eventually going to fail you. And with the automated transmissions and, a new clutch or whatever is $3-4 grand, depending on, what you're doing. But, automated transmission goes down. That's in the multi-thousands of dollars. Not to mention the downtime. I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier this week, and he had like major repairs done, all paid for, but he was down for quite a while. And so the amount of money he lost with that, he's having to stay out a little bit. So, I mean, that's part of owning a business. I mean, and the reality is let's say you own a Subway or a sandwich shop and you can't afford to buy the bread to keep yourself in business. Like I actually went into a Subway back when, I was eating carbs, and I went in like, yes, sir, we're only doing salads today. We're out of bread. I would think that that's probably the number one ingredient if you're a sandwich shop, right? And probably was because they couldn't afford it, probably because it was a logistics issue, but still. And that's what I see every single day with owner operators. And so what I want to do is I want to tell people, hey, do your numbers, whether you like them or not. They're the reality. They're the reality of what you're dealing with. Because we can speculate all day long. We can speculate truck repairs and costs and all that stuff. But if you don't know your numbers now, today, right this minute, well, you're kind of like, it's kind of like being in a sandwich shop again. Let's compare that. If you didn't take inventory of what's in your cooler, how do you know when you're out of ham? How do you know when you're out of cucumbers? How do you know when you're out of when you're getting close to be out of dough for bread? And that's blind. That's blind leading. That's blind business management. So, I mean, this is something that you have to consider. And a lot of people don't want to hear that reality. The accountants, if you got a good accountant, they might tell you what's going on. But if you don't have a finger on your own pulse, how do you know? How do you know if you're breathing right? Right? So, anyways. All right, let's go to comments here. STTN, how are you? I miss talking to you. Nice avatar there. My name is Nobody. Good morning. Red Lady. Good morning. Bull of the Woods. Top of the morning. Cheap Freight Hauler. Good morning from stop 11 of 16. Good deal. Let's see. Good morning, Mrs. A. She's in the house. Literally. Mr. Charles, who has removed himself from the road. Congratulations. Let the shenanigans commence. David, you should give me a call today. You have my number. Red Lady, hit the like button, everyone. Thank you. And I appreciate your membership as well. Smitty Trucker, I appreciate your membership as well. Good morning. Music City Transport, good morning from Hammond, Louisiana. Ah, yes. The land of roundabouts. I believe I did a music video of going through all the roundabouts in the good old Hammond there by the Petro. The first time I went there, I was like, this is ridiculous. Sterling, good morning. Disposable society is why I can't find an old snapper like Forrest Gump had. Yep. I think that meteor yesterday that crashed near where I live inspires some weird nightmares. Let's talk trucking. All right. We already read those comments. Reality, just keep paying yourself the truck note to build maintenance fund. Right. Look, when it comes to truck payment, let's go over this, right? So if you have, let's say you're doing a big lease like that's like $1,500 a week, which is common. It's not just Schneider Finance; it's common with a lot of these mega carriers and even smaller carriers. And then and by some grace of God, you're able to pay that off. Okay. And by the way, I'm live on the other channel as well, the OG channel. So, but I can read comments from both here. So if you see a comment that you don't see pop up, then that's what it is, right? And let's say that you accomplish that lease, and now your payments are zero, right? Do you want to keep putting 1,500 away? Give yourself a little bit of a raise and put half of that every week, or a third of that, or 2/3 of that a week. You'll still get a raise. You'll still be able to net more, but you're still putting a large amount of money away for, because what a lot of people don't realize is not only do you got to put away money for maintenance and repair, but you also got to put away money for replacement. Well, I'm going to keep this truck till I die. A lot of people have said that. I said that. But you still got to replace things: motors, transmissions, EGR coolers, DPF systems, right? That's not just like your oil changes and your tires, right? Which is what most people are saving for, is oil changes and tires. And I saw it at Landstar a lot with a lot of these drivers that had paid off trucks. They become lazy. They don't run as much. And then when their truck breaks down, they don't have the money to fix it. But, Sugar Daddy Landstar will help you a couple of times. Then after a while, they're like, no, we ain't helping you anymore. Keep reaching back for my coffee. Sterling says it's like owning a gold mine. The miners don't make money before everyone else does, right? Mr. B. On the way. Okay. Howdy from North Carolina. Thank you for coming in. Oh, there's a B on your avatar. That's neat. If a carrier was to sell, including warehouse, office, yard, and fleet is lowest value of all, unless it's new trucks, trailers. It's your land and building that make you money when you sell. That I'll agree to that. Morning, Snorelord. Desert Pam. Good morning. Michael Cabanas. Good morning. Mega carriers see trucks as a tool, right? Business doesn't last forever. That's true. If the goal is to operate as cheaply as possible, wouldn't it be cheaper to own versus full maintenance lease? That's a good question, and it's up for debate because if you talk to Jeffrey Like, he had a full maintenance lease, and he kept more of his money. And he owned trucks. He had paid off trucks. He had, he's done it all. But yet it was his full maintenance lease that created the foundation, which is now his company. Because, think about this. If your full maintenance lease is, say, $2,000 a month plus 10 cents a mile, so depending on how many miles you run, you're looking at like maybe, $3,000 to $4,000 a month. If you're running a truck, so if you have a truck payment, because you're buying it, that's say $2,000 a month, and you're putting 10 cents a mile away, it's the same thing. Full maintenance lease, you're giving that 10 cents a mile whether that truck needed it or not. Whereas if you keep the 10 cents a mile, put it in a separate bank account, and let's say that you never blow a turbo, you never blow your EGR cooler, you never blow your transmission, you never blow your engine. And so now you have all this money saved up. You get to keep that money unless you use it to invest in the truck or the next truck. Whereas full maintenance lease, you're losing that money regardless. But that check engine light comes on, it's not your problem. Other than the lack of revenue for the downtime. Now, if you're signed on with a carrier that does a full maintenance lease, which there are some out there, then you might even get a loaner truck that you can still keep making money. And that would be one of the benefits. So it's apples and oranges, but it's the same fruit basket. So you would just have to do a cost analysis. There's some people that will do a cost analysis. It costs just as much money to run a used truck or an older truck than it is a new truck. Think about this. If you have, let's say, a 1997 Freightliner FLD, yeah, you're not spending money on DEF or DPF issues, that kind of thing, that kind of nature, hardly any sensors and computers on that. But your fuel mileage is going through the roof. I mean, you're like, or, is low, not through the roof. It's low. Like you're lucky to get 4 or 5 miles a gallon. Whereas you might have a 9 mile per gallon truck, but then it's constantly got DPF issues, constantly has sensor issues, constantly has, electronic breakdowns. What's the difference, right? It's like super singles, right? I've talked about super singles might save you money in fuel. Maybe. But the cost of one blowout on the road kind of eliminates those savings. So is it worth it? No. Is it worth the risk of having super singles? To me, no. I've had super singles. There's a cost analysis in everything, whether it's a full maintenance lease or buying the truck, or if you're the kind of person that buys a truck, keeps it, and just keeps repairing it, keeps it on the road versus trading in every 3 years. When you look at the mega carriers and they're trading their trucks in every 3 or 4 years, that's probably they've figured something out. And the truck manufacturers cater to that, which is why you have a lot of problems with the truck after 5, 6, 700,000 miles. Correct? So that's kind of that's how I think, right? I may be wrong, but you have to evaluate everything. I got a text here. Hold on. Sweet. Good deal. Never be afraid to over communicate, drivers, to your dispatchers and your brokers. Gary Cook, good morning. My longest membership. Awesome. Thank you, Sterling. I appreciate you. 31 months. If you organize your chart of accounts in accounting software, you can run reports on the data. Quarter over quarter changes are helpful for a number of indicators. That's true, Music City. I agree with that. Washington State is like that, roundabout in the most unusual areas, and they're all over the place, right? Kansas is also like that. Can't hang going out to play while it's not so hot out. Y'all have a great day and be safe. Georgia's moving towards roundabouts. Roundabouts and diverging diamonds. You can thank Springfield, Missouri for the diverging diamonds. Mr. Charles is picking up his final lowdown. An interesting feeling. Great. I never really got that. The last thing I did was rescue a flatbed trailer that a driver abandoned. And then I went and got that and Took it to the yard and didn't realize that was going to be the last time I was going to drive that truck. Nathaniel, what's up? Super Ego lease is $2,800 a month. It's actually not bad when it compares to like Schneider Finance and all the others. But I would be leery about the company. Good morning, John. I guess I'm just too simple-minded to consider leasing. I haven't bought extended warranties either. Just figured if they can do it and be profitable, I can self-warranty cheaper. Everything has a trade-off. Right. That's true. Chief Rail, that's my mindset. And that was mine too. I didn't buy the extended warranty. And I tried to put money away as much as possible. My problem was I didn't work enough. And a lot of that because I was supplemented because of being the safety manager here at Like Trucking. So other irons in the fire that allow me to do that. Whereas if I had to feed the family with that truck, and only that truck, then I would have done things 100% different. And that's and at the end of the day, the IRS took all of it. So when I sold the truck. Car rental companies also turn over cars every 2 years. That's true. Good morning, Jose. CDN says trucking is a cost-intensive business. Passing along. That's kind of what I'm saying. Because we can sit here and analyze rates all we want, and we're getting ready to do that. We're going to go to rates and volumes because I know that's why you guys tune in. You don't want to hear me talk about things. But at the end of the day, it's the cost, not the rates, that are putting people out and management. If you're putting drivers in the equipment, leased equipment with maintenance programs make more sense. Right. If you're counting the IRS getting their share, we're technically still paying for that truck. That's true. Yes. Let me put my coffee here on. That is true. I don't like monthly payments, but I have a friend that full maintenance leases everything. Going to pick his brain about it. And if you talk to hot shotters will do that too. A lot of them will lease those trucks. I had that insight when I was talking on the regular with Ratman Roden. He gave me that perspective. Because the hotshot trucks they're not designed to go a million miles like the semi trucks are. No. Abuse and use and throw it out the window. All right. Let's share the screen here. Let's go to 123 low board 48065 if you want to try it out for free for 30 days. Don't take my word for it. Oh my gosh, look at that load availability. What would you do if this was the map, right? Let's say you're in Wyoming and you see this. What would you do? Now, this is for auto. I did that on purpose to kind of give everybody a shock. Right? Obviously, you can see where all the car makers are. And they ain't manufacturing nothing out west that's showing up on the low board. Let's go to van here. Let's take out auto. Let's go to van. But, see what I did, though? I might be able to make that the thumbnail. In fact, I'm going to do that. Because here's the deal. There's a lot of people that want to give you bad news. They revel in it and they make money off of it. Oh man. In today's world, you need as much information as you can. So buy my program and I'll tell you how to get it. I mean, the preppers, it's really bad with the preppers, right? Buy my $150 course so I can tell you how to survive the apocalypse. Then you pay the $150 and you buy all your trinkets and your gadgets and your medical kits and you stock up on ammo and the next thing you know, you're in debt. The world never ends, and then you're hating life. So there's a lot of sensationalism going on with information, right? I try to tell you how things are real, right? But I imagine some of you probably jumped a little bit when you saw that map. All right, this is for Van. A lot of yellow on this map versus some of the, like Oklahoma, Arkansas were green. Arizona's been green for a while, whereas New Mexico was yellow. Not so much anymore. Stay out. So I've been experimenting with the West stuff. Okay. I've got a truck in Arizona that I dispatch now, and we've had a tough time adjusting because I don't normally run out West. So in my own truck, I never went out West in the spot market. I did it a few times at Landstar. I did it a lot in the, well, not a lot, but I did. I went to Salt Lake all the time as a company driver. Went out to Ontario one time as a company driver. Went to Phoenix a couple of times as a company driver. But for the most part, I did Montana one time. I did Washington a couple of times. I did Oregon one time. I went to Idaho one time, and that was with Landstar. Yeah, I've been to all the states, but for the most part, as an owner operator, I pretty much stayed east of I-35 when I could. Every now and then I'd flirt with Abilene and Big Spring, Texas, and Dallas and all that. But for the most part, between I-35 and I-77. So when I got a driver that's like, hey, I live out west. Okay, now I'm trying to find the lanes that pay. And what I have found, and I'm gonna bring in the DAT board on this. Okay, so when we go to volumes on the DAT, it's a good indicator of what volumes are like for all the low boards. Okay. So when I go to here and I see Arizona's got 430 out, okay, California's got 2795 out, Colorado's got 334 out, Idaho's only got 61 out, Kansas has got 312 out, Montana's only got 24 loads out, North Dakota's got 85 loads out, which has got more out than in, which is interesting. New Mexico's only got 61 loads. Oregon's got 108. South Dakota's got 75. Utah, 89. Washington, 137. And Wyoming, 57. So there's more loads. Washington's 137. That's not bad. So what I did was I looked at all the states in the West and who had the most outbound volume. So if you're coming from Phoenix, you get a good paying load up to Colorado, that's your best chance to go east, unless you take your hit to California. And so I was experimenting with market rates. What's the lane rate from Phoenix to the LA Basin, right? That market. And if you go up to Bakersfield or Sacramento, it pays a little bit more out of Arizona, obviously, for more miles. But and what really kind of triggered that was when I saw that they were paying really good money even like from the Midwest to Oregon, Washington, Idaho, we might as well have been going to Montana. Like right here, it shows Montana has 24 loads. Washington has the higher amount, 137. But look at Oregon, 108 loads. You've got a better chance of getting out of Colorado than you do Oregon or Washington. Obviously, the port freight is dried up in the Pacific Northwest. So even running that I-5 corridor from Washington or Oregon to California, you're taking a hit. So I told this driver that we should go from Phoenix to LA, and then if we want to run short, we just go back to Phoenix. Or maybe go up to Nevada and then drop down. If we want to run long, you're going to get your best rates out of California. So that's and right now it's 2,700 loads coming out today. And there's 25 going in. So California is kind of evening up there. So the outbound has increased because earlier this was only at 15 this week, 1,500 going out. So I mean that's a good sign, and the rest should follow. Right? So if you live in Arizona, you have to utilize California, which is why this driver is over here, because the last carrier wouldn't allow them to utilize California. And you can make a little bit more. Yeah, you take your hit going from Phoenix to LA, but then you can make a lot more going from LA to anywhere in the country versus Phoenix to anywhere in the country, or Salt Lake anywhere in the country, or Washington, or Oregon to anywhere in the country. So learning to recognize that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to learn, and we're going to experiment. It's going to be a learning curve. And, and what I see when most people like come into the spot market for the first time, they can't afford the learning curve that you're going to have. You're going to be burned by that one broker. You're going to be burned by that shipper that keeps you for 2 days. You're going to make a mistake and grab a load that, wow, that was great money going in, but there's absolutely nothing coming out. And if you're afraid of deadhead, you really got to be careful where you go. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a lane. We're trying to create a pattern. We're trying to create a strategy. Where am I at on the comments here? Chief Ray says, I don't like monthly payments, but I have a friend that full maintenance leases everything going to Pickersbury. Okay, where that? Jose says, I will walk. Hang the keys back up and go to the beach for the weekend, right? Y'all stay frosty today. I'm putting it in the wind. Good luck and Godspeed. You don't get a million miles out of trucks anymore, between 600 and 700 before they have to be rebuilt because of death. That's true, Michael. I agree with that. David Edwards says, Commerce City towards Chicago. Is that what you're doing, or is that what you want to see? I agree, Michael. My last truck was cost me $25,000, $30,000 a year. Sold it at 760,000 miles. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio are green, but I haven't seen green rates up there. It's just easier to find a load is what a lot of this green is. Like Texas is always green, but you struggle, right? SST, you made it live. Cool. Thank you. Commerce City to anywhere. I've seen a Phoenix, North Carolina yesterday paying good money, but it was multi-stop driver tailgate. Yeah, I mean, Look, anytime you see good money, it's either lift gate, multiple stop, drop trailer. You need 250K in cargo, which luckily we have. Or it's a team load, that kind of thing. Sage, what's up? I focused on lanes that paid versus nobody mentored you to build long-term relationships and build consistency. Consistency is what I'm looking for. This is A says Sage. But that is what the spot market is about, leverage. You can create consistency in the spot market. You really can. You can create long-term relationships in the spot market. Recently, we have a brokerage that I've been using this rep for 3 or 4 years. And one day he was gone, never to be heard from again. But then he called me from his other brokerage and said, "Hey, man, check it out." That relationship meant something to him that he reached out to me. And right away with the new rep, I was like, "Hey, this is what I'm about. This is what I do. This is when I get aggressive. This is when I, give and take. This is what I'm looking for. This is what the trucks I'm doing, I'm dispatching for or looking for." And and with my Western truck, that's what I'm trying to do. We're trying to establish that where is it consistent, because we can get that spike to Washington, no problem. But is it worth sitting for 2 days or deadheading 1,000 miles to get something out? No. I'd rather make X amount per day running shorter stuff in a consistent market that's not bad both directions. That's how our Georgia, Florida guys do it. That's how our Northeast trucks do it. We don't have that many trucks that bounce all over the country, all the time. We got 5 or 6 that run this area. We got 5 or 6 that just run this area. Then we got 5 or 6 that just run this area. And now I'm trying to create one that will run this area right here. But then when we do leave Arizona and we go east, then we'll run this area right here, or run this area right here, and then go back. And I've already got the routes established to go back, because Scorpion Trucker, when I dispatched him, he would do one of our multi-stop loads and then head back to Arizona. And so we would 2 or 3 step it. I always got him to Joplin because of the dog food loads that come out of Joplin. Always go there. Or there's freight out of Kansas that always goes to Phoenix. It takes time to learn these things. It takes the willingness to learn. And a lot of times I'm calming drivers down. Hey, man, we'll be all right. And like Shannon Thomas, what she'll do is she'll call me. I'm like, "Hey, what are you seeing?" And I'll tell her, and then she'll run that area. Right now she's been running the Southeast, going up to Ohio and back a little bit. She's kind of running this lane right up here. The driver in her second truck, we've been kind of running this area because I've been getting consistent money. And we're finding our groove. We're finding each other, what the limitations are and what we're willing to do, and what I can throw and how they schedule. That's another big part of that holds drivers back, is scheduling how you drive. Are you maximizing your time behind the wheel? Are you stopping all the time? Are you keeping the left door closed? time management is ultra important, especially with when the rates are down. Time management is super important. One of the things that I encountered when I was at Schneider was I didn't have to like maximize my time because of all the open drop and hooks. However, I did figure out pretty quickly that the more efficient I was with my time, and STTM will attest to this, the more efficient I was, if I was on the early part of these windows of the drop windows, then I can make more money in the week. I can fill in the gaps. Whereas if you're always live loading, then you have to maximize your time differently. And that's tough to do over holidays and weekends. And we got a holiday and a weekend coming up next week. We're, pretty much going to have a 4-day weekend. So, and that's the beauty of the spot market is you can adjust and adapt. When one market's not doing well, then you're not being beholden to just that particular company's freight market. Like, when I was at Schneider still, I had a lot of the Schneider ICs reach out to me, and a lot of the Pacific Northwest guys were freaking out because they had lost Frito-Lay up there. Hear that dog? He grunted. He's sitting there right at my feet. And they were freaking out because now they're going to have to go outside of their normal zone. And so adaptability has to kick in. You may be anti multi-stop load now, but when you see that how much consistent money it can make, then you might change your tune a little bit. And these are things that I've learned by trial and error, by screwing up, making the mistakes. I've sat for 2 days looking for a load. I've deadheaded 500 miles before. There was a time where I didn't do my numbers. I've made a lot of mistakes, and by the grace of God, I'm still here to tell you about them. And if I can keep people from learning their lessons the hard way, that's what I try to do. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. And then some will argue that I don't know anything, which is fine. Because in some ways I don't. So let's look at outbound California freight, shall we? Now, what you're going to find, because California is doing so well, and all the other markets around it are soft, and let's remove this here real quick. Okay, so when you're out west, your best paying loads out of Arizona are going to be to a red state. Colorado, it's not going to be as good because it's better to come out of there than say Washington or Oregon. We saw that with volumes. Here it's showing 51 outbound in Oregon. Here it's showing 172 outbound in Colorado. Washington is showing 86. That's not too far removed from what DAT was showing, right? So anything in this area is going to be hard to get out. So a lot of them are going to head to California. So it's not like you're going to get stellar rates out of California, but you're going to get better rates out of California than anywhere else. Because Washington sucks, Oregon sucks. All these states red are horrible. And when you look at Arizona, it's yellow. Sometimes it's green. In reefer, it's green quite often. But it gets softened by these other states as well, and then also gets softened by the trucks that do not want to go into California. So whether you come from New York, Wisconsin, Montana, or Texas, it's always inbound California always is going to be the lowest. So my thing is do it from Arizona, right? A little bit of a shorty there. 1 day run. Let's click on outbound. Sort this by highest rate. generally it's hard to get more than $2 a mile in van on long hauls. Like I'm talking like 3,000, 2,500 mile runs, right? This is all the way to Maine, California to Maine. That's a long run. You're pretty much you pretty much got to start with a fresh clock. So let's take a look at this Ontario to Jersey. 5,100. Um, the range is anywhere from 5,000 to 53, 40,000 pounds. Your fuel cost, estimated fuel cost, is going to be 23.55. That's almost half the load. Okay, this is 13% below my cost per day. So that would tell me that running long load like this is not going to be profitable for me. So if I'm going to do a load that's not profitable, I'm going to do it for the shortest distance I can possibly do it for. Now, the problem with this load is that you probably took a hit going into California to get this load. So therefore, you're not making money at all. And then you've got, there's no toll cost on this by some miracle. And my cost per day is fairly low compared to most drivers. 375 is what I got it at. I do have a 17%, carrier's cut here too. I get, the carrier gets 17%. So I would move on from this load. Whereas you have Riverside to Pritchard, West Virginia, this is actually way above the rate check. So let's see what's going on with this one. I bet you it's multiple stop. Or it's hazmat or something. It's not showing anything. They're at 206 a mile. So I'd be highly interested in this load if I wanted to go long miles. Of course, I got the times messed up, so you'd want to get the times. Right? This is 11% above my cost per day. Now, let's go by rate per mile and see where all the shorties are going. Maricopa, California to Clackamas, Oregon. 347 a mile. That's really good, but it's also 45,000 pounds, 44,899. And doesn't say multiple stop, but they're paying a little bit more to go in. That's interesting. So let's look at our outbound. One load going back to California, two loads coming out of Oregon to California, and six loads going from Oregon to anywhere at the time of this delivery. Not a great outbound. Now, if you had a steady customer that doesn't hit the low boards on your outbound, then by all means, grab this load and go. But that 102% above cost today, that's really good. But it's going to be absorbed by, if it takes me a full day to get out of there with no revenue, then that cost per day goes up, right? But it's not just taking a bad rate coming out, taking anything coming out. That's where the challenge is. Now, if it was just like Denver, where you can find freight, it's just going to be crappy pay. Then yeah, you can minimize the damage. But if there's no loads, there's no loads, and you're dead heading out of there anyways. A lot of tanker freight is like that, like food grade tanker, like molasses and liquid sugar and all that. They'll deadhead those trucks back, and so their rates are basically round trip rates. Same thing with hazmat tank, right? But here we go. LA to Las Vegas, $900 for the day, 274 miles. And so you look at, okay, what's Vegas to Los Angeles? Oh, it's a 2 stops in Los Angeles. With that second stop, I'd add another 100 on here. And so we scroll down here to the backhaul. There's 6 going from Vegas to Los Angeles. So let's take a look at those rates. Click on that. You're looking at about 576 on the averages. So you'll probably get about 700 back. So 1,002, 700 back comes out to, what's that average out to for, a 300-mile trip? Now, here's another one, 3,400, 321 miles to go to Washington. New Mexico is another one that you get tempted by the money. Pueblo, Colorado, that's Target. You don't want that, number one. And number two, Pueblo is a little bit harder to get out of than Denver. If you're going to go to Colorado, go to the Denver area because you don't want to add a 100-mile deadhead to an already lowered rate coming out. And so your best paying rate per mile is all going to the other western states that have nothing coming out, except for the shorties to Nevada. Right? Notice none of these are going northeast. None of these are going southeast. And so once you're out west for a minute. Now here we go. Victorville, California to Phoenix. That's that $1,000 lane I told you about. So we'll click on this. And we go to picks up today, delivers Monday. Let's go to backhauls down here below. 10 loads. 574, 450. We can get a little bit better than that. Right. The 600 is probably more realistic. But if you need to cross the country, California is going to do much better on your rate than any of the other states. Here, and I'll show you examples. So 5,500 to Maine. Okay. That's about as far as you can get, right? Let's do Washington. What's the highest paying load coming out of Washington State? $3,000. It's $2 a mile, but that's going to Colorado. So again, you're hitting another dead end state. $1.60. So, but that's the highest paying thing. That's $3,000 is the max, and you're going to another crappy state. $2,400 to go. See, so I mean, you're cutting your revenue, so you're better off to come out of California. Same thing with Oregon. Let's look at outbound in Oregon. $4,400 to go to New Jersey. That's a little less than one coming out of. That's actually not bad. Considering where you're at. But I would almost choose this Mississippi because that puts you in a better market, which is why they're paying, quite a bit lower. That and the miles are less. But look at this. Happy Valley, Oregon to Youngstown, Ohio, 99 cents a mile, 2,500 bucks. Oh, it's LTL. But good luck finding something that works with that. $1.60 you go to Commerce City, Colorado. So Oregon's a no bueno. Now let's look at the rate per mile in Oregon. 950 go to Washington. That's it. Let's take a look at that load. 325 a mile. It's a shorty. General merchandise. No hot shot trucks. Now you might say, well, maybe there's a lane from Washington to Oregon and back, but the low volumes don't really support that. Whereas you can easily do California, Arizona and back because, if you look at this map, these are the two most populated states with loads. New Mexico, not so much. 35 outbound. So that's what I'm talking about. Broker changes company and calls you. Yes, I've had that happen a couple of times. Keep reaching back for my coffee. It's right here. Gary says I try to stay in the Midwest, Southeast. That's about right. CDN, you are now a master dispatcher. Knowledge is gold. I don't know about that, but I appreciate the compliment. Some drivers think time management means using the magic eraser when the logbook runs out of time. Clean book, plenty of time. Vlad always has a fresh logbook. What's up? Glad to see you back. Looking for Joplin to Chicago. We can do that. Let's look at Joplin to Chicago. So what we'll do is we'll go to market rates. Let's do Joplin to Chicago. Joplin Mo to Chicago. There's not many. So let's go to, so this is the going rate. It's showing only 3 loads. Let's take a look. Prior to Peoria, 1,100. They're right on target. Prior to Decatur, this is probably going to be beverages or paper. No, it's the 13,000 one's going to be paper. It's going to be finished paper, but this one's probably going to be beverages or glass. Glass also comes out of Prior. And then Cameron, Oklahoma to Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. So that's what pops up there. So let's go to find loads. Create new search. Because by doing it this way, you can get some radius going. So let's do a 200-mile radius of Joplin to Chicago, Illinois, which is a consistent lane, by the way. Let's see what's going on for today. Coffeyville, Kansas to Aleta, Ohio, or Illinois. I'm sorry, Aledo. Looks like the highest paying thing is Hot Springs, Arkansas to Sturtevant, Wisconsin. Two-day run for 1,300, not great. Depends on how close you want to get. It's Cameron, bit of deadhead on this, but if you get him up to 16 on that, looks like this is your best bet. 211 a mile on this one. Still puts you a ways from Chicago. But if you got Illinois Interstate, that should be no problem to supplement that. Two-step it. Brokers didn't get customers. TMS companies building dispatch software, load boards, building platforms to find loads, owner operator hauling. The spot market wouldn't exist. It takes many spokes to make a spot work. Yes. LVC currently in Victorville. Victorville, where? Made $160 while listening to this live. Time to kick the tires and load these tracks up. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for coming in, Cheap Freight, and listening. It's almost time. Start my day. Should be back in the States today. Excellent. As Steve has been saying for years, your flexibility or non-flexibility is a key factor to income potential in spot market. Some lanes may be best if you run weekend and take midweek time off. Figure it out. That's true. That's true. Let's go back to low availability. Let's put a reefer in this. A lot more yellow than we like. But at least you got a little bit more outbound in Washington, but not much. Let's see. Your most outbound states is Georgia, Texas, of course, Missouri, New York. Michigan's not doing too bad. Wisconsin's got 200. That's good. So, and then we got flatbed and step deck. Let's take out that. Look at that. You do not want to be west with the flatbed if you're in the spot market. And the spot flatbed stuff has gone down. Volumes have gone down. So, if I was a flatbed aficionado, guy that studied that, I would want to know why it's dropping off. Is it political conditions? Is it economic conditions? Is it the time of year? I don't know. I don't have any history with a flatbed. So Arizona Sidewinder, hey, what's up? So anyways, 48065 if you want to try it yourself. If you want to support the channel, all the information is below. Next week we're going to talk about 4th of July and getting home for that. I'm going to try to go live on Monday to see what happens, but as it stands right now, I might have a couple of empty trucks on Monday. So with that being said, strength for today over tomorrow. Make sure that you are paying attention to what's in front of you, because a lot of people are going to be yelling at you. A lot of people are going to be telling you to look at the past. You got to look at what's happening now, because that's the only thing that matters at this point. So with that being said, strength for today over tomorrow. Have a good weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Peace.